All right, welcome to part 2 of the situation update for Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. This is Mike Adams here. We're deep in the rabbit hole. Very deep. If you haven't heard part 1 of this podcast, you need to hear it. Go back and listen to that first. It's on Brighteon.com. It's on my channel. Because just as an overview, in part 1, we talked about Charles M. Lieber, the Harvard scientist, just been found guilty. But his expertise is in nanowires that interface with human biology, biological systems. He's an expert in, well, he's even got a patent called the controlled synthesis of monolithically integrated graphene structure, and another patent called scaffolds comprising nanoelectric components for cells, tissues, and other applications. He was paid over $1.5 million by the communist Chinese, plus $50,000 a month while he was working at Harvard. No doubt Harvard, well, there's a lot more going on at Harvard, we'll just say. And he was also then offered other benefits, including, $180,000 of moving expenses and things like that. I know that this source doesn't want to be named, so I'm not going to name you. I know you're listening, but I want to thank you for digging a lot of this up. And a lot of this that I do here, folks, it's not something that I find. It's stuff that people find and then send to me. And then I pour through it and I read it because I am a scientist, so I can go through the science studies. I understand, all the fundamentals of physiology and anatomy and physics and chemistry and so on. So I can interpret the stuff and then I can translate it and give you the practical kind of, layperson explanation of what it all means. That's what we're doing now. And this is a bombshell. If this theory is correct, if this, scenario, it's more than a theory. If this scenario is correct, that he handed over this carbon nanotube payload delivery technology to China, they built biological weapons, and they also, by the way, installed all of the Huawei 5G hardware control systems and networking systems. No, it's going to be like a death switch, or it's going to be a switch that drives everybody insane. Maybe like a lobotomy. Who knows? A euthanasia switch. Everybody drops dead. I'm not sure what kind of payload it is, but it's a binary weapon system. It's 5G plus carbon nanotube payloads. That's the technology we're talking about. That's what has been deployed, I believe. Now, Charles M. Lieber is a genius. He's some kind of genius, mad scientist guy. Super smart guy. I mean, who could figure this stuff out? Self-assembling nanowire mesh systems that interface with human neurology and biology, carbon nanotube payload delivery systems. He's a smart guy. Where did he come from? Well, if you go out there and you look at his father was named Robert Lieber, and he received the 1962 David Sarnoff Outstanding Achievement Award in Engineering for his contributions to the field of high-precision space tracking and navigational systems. Now I'm reading from aimfortruth.org. This is American Intelligence Media. Aim for Truth. That's the digit 4, the numeral 4. Aimfortruth.org. Just go to aimfortruth.org, search for Robert Lieber 1962. And you'll find a newspaper clipping there and a translation of it. Says that Robert Lieber, this is the father of Charles Lieber, Robert Lieber, Systems Engineering, Moorestown Missile and Surface Radar Division, Defense Electronic Products in Moorestown, New Jersey. And he received the 1962 David Sarnoff Award. And the newspaper clipping says that Mr. Lieber has contributed new and fundamental knowledge to high accuracy prediction of satellite and missile position using surface-based tracking data which opens new avenues to the solution of satellite tracking problems. He had made an important advancement in the integration of tracking, communication, and telemetry functions for support of space missions, and has also pointed the way toward vehicle attitude determination from Earth. Okay, so what is vehicle attitude determination? That's not when the vehicle is like, oh, no, today I was moody and then I was happy. No, it's the angle of the vehicle relative to the Earth beneath it. So if you were to draw a line perpendicular to the ground of the Earth straight up into the sky, and then we're talking about the attitude, the angle of the vehicle relative to that line. Why does that matter? Well, obviously, this is all about re-entry of intercontinental ballistic missile systems. If you have the wrong angle, your missiles burn up in the atmosphere. And remember, this is 1962. So this is at the early edge of the space race during the Cold War to build ICBMs and make sure they don't burn up in the atmosphere. So this guy, Robert Lieber, was a rocket scientist. A rocket scientist. Working with the Department of Defense. Now, it's very doubtful that Robert Lieber is still living, although it's possible. He was born in 1926. In fact, his birth date here, for those of you who want to dig deeper, is May 6th, 1926. And his mother's name was Sophie, S-O-P-H-I-E. And it looks like his father's name was Leo. And his mother and father came to the United States as immigrants aboard the SMS Bismarck, a German ship that departed Hamburg, Germany, although his mother and father are said to be Romanian. Now, okay, I want to reiterate before I say the following that this is my analysis and opinion, and I'm not in any way attributing anything evil to Robert Lieber, but I need you to be aware of Operation Paperclip. So Operation Paperclip, which has all been declassified, but you need to read the books by the late, great Jim Marrs in order to understand what I'm about to say here. Now, Jim Marrs has a book called, I think it's called The Fourth Reich. It is absolutely worth buying and reading and understanding that book, because in it he talks about how the Nazi regime continues to this day and how the Third Reich actually then infiltrated technology, medicine, and science in America, and what we're living under today is actually Nazi fascism. Now, under Operation Paperclip, which again is openly admitted, the U.S. Defense Department was able to take Nazi scientists at the end of World War II, after the so-called Third Reich had been defeated. They offered these scientists, especially scientists with special knowledge in rocketry and telemetry, i.e. attitude navigation systems and so on. They offered these scientists new identities in America, new passports, new papers, new names, all of that. And then they brought them over to the United States and they gave them a backstory. And these backstories often included, like, oh, their parents were already here and things like that. So it's a whole new identity, whole new backstory. They would put articles in the newspapers to create the backstory and so on and so forth. Now, for the record, I don't know if Robert Lieber is a former German scientist who was recruited by the United States and brought to the U.S. after World War II. I don't know if that's the case, but it seems possible. Yeah, Biden actually is using Nazi level threats now against the American citizens, but that's another story. But perhaps, and again, this is just conjecture, perhaps Lieber was given an opportunity after World War II as a young scientist to, in his, what he would have been in his 20s at that time, right? Or early 20s. Obviously a very bright man. genius level person, and his genius would have been evident at a very young age, probably in his teens. He was perhaps offered the a new identity, new passport under Operation Paperclip, which continued, by the way, through the late 1940s. And I think even in the early 1950s as well. And perhaps he was brought to the United States then to work on the super secret Department of Defense weapon systems. And that's how he got involved in radar and telemetry, rocket science, navigation systems, missile and surface radar, all kinds of things. He was a brilliant engineer. So it could be that this man was, in fact, an American patriot, and that he wanted to work for America, not the Nazis, and that he wanted to use his intellect to help America build up defensive weapon systems. All right, so just to be clear, I'm not calling him a Nazi. I'm saying maybe he wanted to escape the Nazis and come to America and work for science in America. Perhaps that's what happened. But there's no record that confirms that. It just fits the timing, and a lot of what was going on at that time points in that direction. But this would explain a lot about him having a son, Robert Lieber, who was just prosecuted and found guilty on 6 counts. Robert Lieber, raised in a science family by a brilliant father with an extremely high IQ, and that Robert Lieber was probably, this is just my guess, he was probably demonstrating very high levels of cognition and scientific capabilities at a very young age. I mean, this guy has developed exotic nanotube technology that, you wouldn't be doubted if you thought it was alien. It's so advanced. And you might think, how did he come up with this stuff? Super genius guy. I mean, look at the patents we covered. And basically, this is Neuralink technology that Elon Musk advocates, except Charles Lieber was doing this like over a decade ago. Okay, so that's the level of genius that this guy is. So Charles Lieber is not, Charles Lieber didn't come, he's not a Nazi, obviously. He's probably thought of himself as just a brilliant American his entire life. But for whatever reason, he made a mistake ethically, morally, and he took money from China and decided to share technology with China. And I can't read into what might have been going through his mind to make those decisions, and we can't know, I suppose, unless we interview him. I doubt he's willing to be interviewed on this topic, although that door is open. If he hears of this, we would love to hear his story, frankly. Love to ask him questions about this technology. But nevertheless, he did something that the DOJ said was criminal. And he worked with America's enemy, the CCP. And he's now been found guilty. So what this looks like to me is a story of a science family, a brilliant father and a genius son, both of whom were well ahead of their time. Exotic technology, they're creating the future today. And the father received all these awards and as far as I know, never had any legal trouble of any kind. He was just known as this brilliant engineer. And then Charles Lieber makes this horrific mistake working with the enemy, gets prosecuted, and now is found guilty and is about to be sentenced to jail. Now, where does the story go from here? So Charles Lieber is 62 years old. The United States government would be insane to throw this guy behind bars and just have him serve out his sentence in an orange jumpsuit. That would be a waste of a brilliant mind. And no doubt Charles Lieber right now understands that he's made a horrible mistake. And no doubt he probably regrets it, although I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that he regrets it. How much do you want to bet the U.S. government will come to Charles Lieber and say, hey, you want to reduce your prison sentence? Come work for us. We're going to be the special DARPA nanotech weapons development system. You're going to work for us for 5 years, and then you won't have to spend those years in prison. And now you're going to apply all your knowledge and technology to give us more advanced weapon systems instead of China. So I'm just throwing this out there, but I think that that's what's going to happen next. I think they're going to plug Charles Lieber into a DoD program to try to achieve some kind of weapon system equilibrium with China. Because now that all this technology has gone into the hands of China, the U.S. is behind, and the U.S. needs to catch up. So Lieber, again, this is my guess. I don't have any proof of this, but my guess is Lieber is going to once again be working for America to serve out his prison sentence. Or who knows, maybe I'm reading this wrong, and maybe Lieber just hates America and says, no, I'd rather die, and hangs himself like Epstein. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I hate to see brilliant minds, imprisoned or suffering. But I also think that science should be applied with morality. And I've long been against the use of science to develop weapons of mass destruction. I want you to dig deeper into this story, see what you can find, and post videos on Brighteon.com. Now, it doesn't have to be you in the video if you want to protect your own identity. I don't blame you. You should protect your identity. And let me just tell you, as the founder of Brighteon.com, if you're worried about being found out for any of this, when you sign up, you can always use, an anonymous email. It's like, I don't know, the Lieber bombshell, like the true story that nobody ever knew, and it just goes super viral. And then suddenly we get a subpoena that says, hey, you got to tell us who uploaded that video. All we can give the DOJ is the IP address that we have from the upload origin, and that would be the VPN that you were using. So there are ways to protect yourself. I believe in protecting your anonymity. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in real journalism, but also protected journalism. So these are some things that you can do, and I'm asking you to contribute to this research. Let's dig deeper into this story and find out what's going on. Oh, don't forget to search for Huawei, Huawei. Remember, that's the 5G telecom company. Oh, and search for 5G as well. Use all those terms together. And of course, I'm going to write a story about this to cover all this. And when you start searching for this, you'll probably see my story, but you can ignore that because I've already told you everything I know here, and that it's already in place, and that this is why the world leaders are so desperate. There's like 160 world leaders that were all trained by Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum, the WEF. These are the people who run Canada, and they run U.S. states. They, like Newsom is one of them in California. There's like the president of France is one of these people. Pick a day. What would be a day that the globalists would want to do this on? They're always into numbers and, symbols and stuff. And they always want satanic stuff. Is there anything coming up that's like a satanic day? I don't know. Or, hey, maybe they would just choose like January 6th, to be the J6 anniversary or something. Or I don't know, but maybe they'll pick some day, or they'll do it on New Year's Eve, or they'll do it on Christmas Day, maybe as to try to attack the celebration of Christ or something. But whatever day they do this, according to the sci-fi scenario here, but you can't image nanotubes without, frankly, an electron microscope. And I don't have one of those. I'm going to have to add that to my list of stuff to get for Christmas. So it's funny, just as a side note, it's funny because sometimes, occasionally, a family member or a friend will say, hey, what can I get you for Christmas? And I'm like, I pretty much have everything. There's not really anything you can get me that, physically speaking, because I'm a prepper. I'm a serious prepper. I've got like 3 of everything. I just bought 3 sewing machines, as you know, just to give you an example. You could give me some thread. I'm pretty sure you have to draw a vacuum, a pretty strong vacuum. So you're going to have a rough pump, which is a vacuum pump, and then you're going to have a turbine for the final part of the vacuum, the final, well, the rough pump only pulls it down to a certain level of a vacuum, a certain number of pascals, and then you got to have a turbine that spins at 40,000 RPMs, and then you got to have a three-phase 220 volt power supply hookup, which requires an electrician, and you have to have an air filter, and then you have to have sample prep, and your sample prep, if it goes wrong, you're imaging dust instead of the thing you're looking for. These instruments are more complicated than you think. It's not Star Trek technology. You just pop it in a door. You're like, show me what it is. It doesn't work that way. It's like a whole thing. It can take months just to learn how to use an electron microscope when you ask for it, and they're going to come give you the death jab or, install the payload, and then they're going to pay all of you in your house $100 right there on the spot, even the kids. So this is how desperate they are. So watch this video. It's only 30 seconds. That's for them, that's a bargain. Invest $100 in your death and get a payoff of $180,000. It's something in that range. Wow. Yeah, de Blasio can do the math on this one. You know what? Come to think of it, let's play another psychopath for you here. The Boston mayor, this psycho. What is her name? She is, in my opinion, a criminal against humanity. She's another Joseph Mengele, just like Fauci. I mean, and think about the doublespeak and the insanity, the Orwellian insanity of all this. They call this the Be Together initiative when they force you to stay apart. How is this the Be Together initiative? They should really call it the Hurry Up and Die initiative. There's eavesdropping on all of it. This is one of the big advantages of a satellite phone, is they're not tying it to your identity. Now, granted, probably every satellite phone conversation is recorded, but they don't know who's talking, and they don't know the geolocation of where it came from, and they can't tie it to the rest of your life. Check it out. There's 100 good reasons to have a satellite phone, and one of those reasons is that it's not run by Huawei 5G microchips from communist China. I mean, that's just one reason. Now, by the way, people have asked me, but isn't there a lot of radiation from the sat phone? And the answer is only from the tip of the antenna pointing up to the satellite. So you hold the phone. It's actually okay to hold these phones next to your ear and talk on them, but the antenna is pointed up away from you. It's a kind of you have to fold it out. It's a pretty long antenna. That's directional. It's going to the satellites. Just don't stick your head in between the antenna and the satellite, and because it'll block the signal, because of your thick skull for doing such a thing. Just all the radiation will bounce off your thick skull, and you'll realize, don't stick your head in there. But no, there's less radiation actually going into your head from a satellite phone than a cell phone, because a cell phone is an omnidirectional, at least a 4G and 3G and so on. It's an omnidirectional. It's blasting out radiation in all directions. With the sat phone, it's just between the antenna and the satellite. So I have no concerns about radiation on a satellite phone, especially since it's for emergency use most of the time anyway. It's not something that people typically use every single day. Oh, hey, since I didn't mention any of this other stuff up front, I've got a video that should be posting today. My rifles is with a suppressor. Okay. Man, we have so many bombshell stories today, and there's no way I'm going to get to them. I'm almost out of time already. But I want to bring you this story. So Russia is shutting off gas supplies to Europe. I talked about this, I think, yesterday and the day before, and there were rumors that the natural gas had been really shut down to 5% by Russia. And this has been confirmed by RT, which is, Russia Today. And they have said, quote, the stopping of Russian gas supplies to Germany via the Yamal Europe network is not political, they say, or related to the waiting for the certification of the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline, the Kremlin said on Tuesday. So understand that Germany and Europe are in an energy crisis right now today. Very cold weather is moving in. Their nuclear power plants, a couple of them in Europe have gone offline. I don't know the reason why. Probably they ran out of electronics or something. They're offline. The solar farms are not producing as expected, nor are the wind farms. And now natural gas has been cut off from Russia in existing pipelines. Now, as you may know, there's this controversy over the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. There's a pipeline that goes at the bottom of the Baltic Sea from Russia directly to kind of northeastern Germany. And so it bypasses all the other countries. It bypasses Ukraine, bypasses Belarus or whoever else is in between Germany and Russia, all bypassed right there. Instead, it goes through the Baltic Sea. This pipeline would provide Germany and hence much of Europe with a tremendous supply of Russian natural gas, but the anti-fossil fuel globalist bureaucrats in Germany, who are some of the worst in the world, they have decided to put this thing on pause because they don't like fossil fuels. Well, guess what? You're going to freeze your little German tush off this Christmas and all through the winter because you have no natural gas. Good luck with that. So I think what Putin has done, this is my opinion, even though officially they deny this, as RT just reported, the Kremlin says, it's got nothing to do with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. I think that Putin has said, basically, hey, let the Germans freeze for a year and see how that works out. Because I think Putin remembers his history, and when the German Sixth Army tried to attack Stalingrad in the winter of, what year was that? 1943 or 4? I forgot which year. But the Germans froze to death so badly that the entire German Sixth Army ended up surrendering to the Russians, who were down to basically women and children fighting with rakes and machetes. I mean, the Russians took tremendous losses, but the Germans froze their butts off, and the entire Sixth Army ended up surrendering. And it was the most embarrassing piece of history in the German advance into Russian territory, where Germany was, of course, trying to obtain fossil fuels from Russia in order to fuel the German Nazi, invasion machine. Why else would you march into the frozen winter tundra of Stalingrad? You have to be insane to try that thing. And yeah, they got walloped bad. So I think Putin is reminding Germany of how good it is to have heat, It's like, don't mess with this again because Russia controls the energy that heats Europe. And Putin's just probably saying that. Let them starve for a winter, remind them, and then they'll pay whatever we charge when we open up the pipelines once again in the spring. That's what I think is going on. And once again, Putin is a strategic genius. Putin can outthink the German chancellor. He can outthink, Biden, but I think one of my chickens can outthink Biden, so that's not saying much. But Putin is as smart as they come. And in terms of raw IQ, Putin is way up there. Xi of China is very high raw IQ. Justin Trudeau's a moron. You knew that. Let's see. Jacinda Ardern is a C student. lunatic psychopath there in New Zealand. But you know what I'm saying? They don't come smarter than Putin in terms of just thinking ahead and having game theory and strategy. Putin's got this whole thing gamed out. And the Germans are going to freeze this winter because they're just they shut down their own fossil fuel infrastructure and said, let's go green. Yeah. Well, shiver your way to the eco utopia then. Yeah. Hope you can stay warm. Hope you got some thick wool blankets. And when you're cold enough, the negotiation with Russia goes something like this. As you're shivering in Germany, your teeth are chattering. Could you turn on the gas pipelines? And Russia's like, sure we could. And Germany will say, well, how much are you going to charge us? And Russia answer will be, how much you got? How badly do you want to not freeze? So that's how that game is played, by the way. But of course, they have to deny that officially. So it's kind of like the question of how much will a starving man pay for a meal? And the answer is everything they have. When you're hungry enough, you will trade everything for one meal. Just depends on how hungry you are. I've had people over the years, I'm into health food, obviously, the health ranger, nutrition, healthy eating. I like to make healthy food delicious, by the way. That's why I love my turmeric smoothies with, bananas and avocados and flax seeds and everything, coconut water. It's actually delicious. For me, it's like dessert all day. I love it. It's amazing. But I've had people over the years, parents, say, hey, I tried your smoothies and, couldn't get my kids to drink the smoothie. What's the problem? And my answer is always the same. Well, they're not hungry enough yet. Your kids are fat and they're living on Pop-Tarts and French fries. And they've nullified their sense of taste because you've been sugar bombing them for the last 5 years. So what you need to do, get all the sugar and salty crap out of your kitchen and out of your pantry, make smoothies, and wait. When they are hungry enough, they will drink smoothies. I'm joking, of course. And when people tell me that they don't want to make their kids eat healthy food, I'm like, what do you think the role of a parent is supposed to be? You're supposed to set guidelines. That's your job. Oh, I can't set guidelines. I wouldn't be popular. Okay, you're not their friend. They'll love you later. But then again, I'm not a parent, so what do I know? I would be a very harsh parent probably because, well, since I wouldn't let my kids go to public school, they wouldn't be exposed to all that garbage. We'd be homeschooled, lots of nutrition, growing food. We'd make it fun. Plus, they get to play with the donkeys and the goats. So, yeah, it'd be quite an adventure. All right, so, folks, that's my podcast for today, the 2-part podcast. Quite an amazing story there about Charles Lieber. Definitely dig into that some more. I'll see what other updates I can bring you on this issue in the days ahead. And let's see, what is tomorrow is going to be Thursday, I believe.